Hello all. So in this video we are starting with a new series, Intermediate Macroeconomics, Semester 4, Economics Major, Delhi University. In the last video I had shared the syllabus and topic wise readings, so kindly refer to that and get your readings ASAP so we can study together. So in this class we are starting with Unit 1. Unit 1 comprises of two chapters, Chapter 10 and Chapter 11. And yes, get the readings ASAP. So this is what Unit 1 is all about. It's about money, interest, income. Money we know, right? Money is important. And so these three elements, money, interest rate and income, are revolving around investment. Mainly investment in this chapter. Okay, so for investment we know money, interest and income are really important. See, for investment, and first of all, what is investment? It is the spending on additions to the firm's capital. So if you're having a company and you are buying 3 computers for your company, that is an investment. Or if you're buying 10 chairs for your company, that is an investment. Even if you're buying 2 pens for your company, pen or pencil, that is an investment. If you're buying 4 or 5 chairs or tables, computers, printers, anything, that is an investment. That is spending on additions to the firm's capital. Not only machines, buildings can also be counted here. Next, firms borrow to purchase investment goods. Firms borrow to purchase investment goods. That is, for investment you need money. I have drawn it here. So for investment you need money. For money you will approach bank. Bank will give you loan, and for loans, if you're getting 1 lakh rupees as loan for a particular period of time, after that you have to pay an interest rate with that, right? Not only 1 lakh, but you need to also pay an interest rate. Say if it is 15%, then 15,000 has to be paid extra for 1 lakh, okay? And if it is 10%, then 10,000 has to be paid as an interest amount. Sorry, so that is what to say interest rate is about. Investment and interest rate is about. So if the interest rate is higher, that means the profit will be less. The profits that the firms can expect by borrowing to buy new machines or buildings is less, because they need to pay a huge amount as an interest rate. Then the profit that they can make will be less. Therefore, if the interest rates are higher, the less firms will be willing to borrow and invest. Okay, there is an inverse relation exists between interest rate and investment. Inverse relation, okay? These are all the basic things that I am saying, so you will be getting a clarity on the concepts in the beginning itself. Just note it, not all these things, okay? That is, inverse relationship exists between interest rate and investment. If interest rate is higher, investment will be less. If interest rate is lower, investment will be higher. Okay, so that's all about investment and interest rate. The next is monetary policy. So we know, so before monetary policy, first of money. We know that money plays a central role in the determination of income and employment. Okay, money. I'm too bad at writing using in my notepads. Okay, so money plays a central role in the determination of income and employment. Interest rates are significant determinant of aggregate spending. We discussed it here. Okay, how interest rate determines aggregate spending. Aggregate spending means it includes investment as well. AAT is equal to in equilibrium, aggregate spending is equal to aggregate demand. AD is equal to AS, and that is equal to consumption plus investment plus government spending net exports and all those. We have studied that. So interest rates are significant determinant of aggregate spending. Central bank controls the money supply. Who controls the money supply? Central bank. So we can say as investment is a function of interest rate, and all these things happen. Okay, so that is about money and central bank, I mean money supply and central bank and all. Next is monetary policy. It plays a central role in the determination of income and employment. In the last semester, what we studied was fiscal policy, right? It is by the government, but monetary policies are implemented by the financial institutions. That is here, RBI. In India, RBI, or the federal bank. Okay. Central bank. Okay. So interest rates are significant determinant of aggregate spending, and the Federal Reserves, which control money growth and interest rate, is the first institution to be blamed when the economy gets in trouble. That is, interest rates determines aggregate spending, then central banks control the money growth and interest rate. That's it. In this chapter, we'll be studying money and monetary policy, and also the interaction of goods market and asset markets. Okay, so all these things is just an example of what an interest rate is. We have already studied that. We have already discussed that for the 1,15,000 if it's 15% interest rate, 35,000 if it's 35% interest rate, and that's all. Okay. Next is figure 10.1 shows the interest rates are typically, but not always, high just before a recession. Interest rates are high before a recession, then drop during a recession, and rise during the recovery. Then figure 10.2 shows money growth and output growth. There is a strong but not absolute link between money growth and output growth. This chapter explores the link from money to interest rate to output. And the model we introduce in this chapter is ISLM model. That is the core of short-run macroeconomics. Okay. So just refer to the 10.1 and 10.2. Next. So this is 10.2. Just have a check on this too. Okay. Now, what determines the interest rate? So here, to know what determines the interest rate, we need to study the interaction of goods and money market. The Federal Reserve enters the picture through its role in setting the supply of money. In the beginning, we have discussed it. The central bank controls the money growth and controls the interest rate. So yes, they controls the money supply. Interest rate and income are jointly determined by equilibrium in the goods and money market. That we'll be studying that and further. Okay. So here we'll be looking to the control of money supply as the underpinning of monetary policy. In the continuation is chapter 11, so that is also very important. So be thorough with the concepts of this chapter, then only you can have a smooth learning on the next chapter, of this unit. So monetary policy works through the money market to affect output and employment. Then the analysis qualifies the conclusion of chapter 9 that we have studied in the second semester. Okay, so consider 10.3, which lays out the logical structure of the model. So far we have looked at the box labeled goods market. By adding the assets market, we provide a fuller analysis of the effect of fiscal policy, and we introduce monetary policy. We shall see, for instance, that an expansionary fiscal policy generally raises interest rate, thereby dampening its expansionary impact. Indeed, under the certain conditions, the increase in interest rates may be sufficient to offset fully the expansionary effects of fiscal policy. So just read it. I'll explain all these things with the examples. Now, without that, it gets more complicated. Okay. So just just read the box 1. Okay, I'll be taking all the boxes at the end only. Now third is the interest rate changes have an important side effect. The composition of aggregate demand between investment and composition spending depends on the interest rate. Okay, we have discussed it, right? Investment and consumption spending depends on the interest rate. Higher interest rate dampen aggregate demand. Now, if the interest rate is higher, the firms can't make much profit. So the aggregate demand will get reduced because aggregate demand includes investment. Thus, an expansionary fiscal policy tends to raise consumption through the multiplier but tends to reduce investment because it increases interest rate. Note this is very important. So this is fiscal policy, not a monetary policy. Government does this. That is, an expansionary fiscal policy tends to raise consumption through the multiplier but tends to reduce investment because investment is determined mainly by the interest rate. So if investment is increased, the interest rate also will increase. So they won't be looking though, they'll just look with the multiplier and increases the consumption because the rate of investment affects the growth of the economy. The side effect of fiscal expansion is a sensitive and important issue in policy making. Okay, then we have an outline of this chapter. So these are just basic things, we'll go with that first. Anyway, so income, we know it's from assets market and goods market. Assets market means money market, bond market. Here the monetary policy arrives. Okay, then for goods market we have fiscal policy. This is how the structure of the ISLM model emphasizes the interaction between goods and assets market. Spending, interest rate, income are determined jointly by equilibrium in goods and assets market. Okay. So next is, we use the model of chapter 9. As I said before, get thorough with the concepts of second semester, that is introductory macroeconomics. Okay. Again, we derive a key relationship IS curve that shows combination of interest rate and levels of income at which the goods markets clear. Clear means equilibrium happens. Okay. So IS curve is for the goods market and LM curve is for the, so we have two markets here, goods and asset. LM curve is for the assets market. Sorry, money market specifically. Okay, I'm really sorry for the mistake. Money market specifically. The demand for money depends on interest rate and income, and there are combinations of interest rate and income levels. The LM curve at which the money market clears. Money market is in equilibrium. LM curve is where the money market gets equilibrium, and IS curve is when the goods market gets equilibrium. Okay, then so we are studying 4 sections in this chapter. Okay, 5th section is excluded. The algebraic presentation of ISLM model is excluded in your syllabus, so we won't be looking that. And we'll be studying the first 4 sections. In the first section, we'll be studying IS curve. Second section, we'll be studying LM curve. Third section, we'll be combining the two schedules to study the joint determination of interest rate and income. Fourth section, we'll be formally deriving the aggregate demand schedule. Okay. So let's start with the first section, goods market and the IS curve. Goods market and the IS curve. Okay. So in this section we derive a goods market equilibrium schedule, that is IS curve. The IS curve or schedule shows combinations of interest rate and levels of output such that planned spending equals income. So that is what equilibrium is. That is when the market gets cleared. Planned spending is equal to income. So first, for deriving IS curve, there are 2 steps. First is to explain why investment depends on interest rate. Second, we insert the investment demand function in the aggregate demand identity. So investment demand schedule. This we have already discussed. That is, investment is spending on the additions to the firm's capital such as machines or buildings. We have discussed it, but again I'll be reading. Typically, firms borrow to purchase investment goods. The higher the interest rate for such borrowing, the lower the profits that the firms can expect to make by borrowing to buy new machines or buildings. Therefore, the less they will be willing to borrow and invest. Conversely, firms will want to borrow when the interest rates are lower. Investment will increase when the interest rate is lower. So, that is the concept of IS curve. When the interest rate is higher, investment is lesser. Interest rate is lower, investment is higher. So that inverse relationship between interest rate and investment, inverse relationship between interest rate and investment is the basics of IS curve. So this is the investment spending function. Capital I is equal to I bar minus BI. So capital I is the investment spending. Okay, and I bar is the autonomous investment spending. That is, that part of investment is independent of both income and rate of interest. Then small I is the interest rate, and B is the coefficient which measures the responsiveness of investment spending on to the interest rate. That we'll be discussing in further, responsiveness. So from this function we can get that if interest rate is higher, this investment spending will be less, such that if B is higher, okay, if the responsiveness, if B is higher, then investment will be less. If B is less, that is the responsiveness to interest rate is less, then the investment will be higher. With examples you'll get more clarity on that. So this is how the investment schedule looks like. Right, this is the interest rate and this is the interest rate, small I. This is the investment. And yes, when the interest rate is higher, you will have investment lesser, near to zero. When the interest rate is again, when it decreases, you will have more investment. When again decreases, more investment. Again decreases, more investment, like that. So there exists an inverse relationship between interest rate and investment. So that is the key reason for it to have a downward sloping demand curve. Negative curve, okay. So next is, so this is an investment schedule. It shows the planned level of investment spending at each rate of interest rate. We discussed it. I simply wrote that function here. So this is the equation 1, okay. When B is greater than 0, this states that the lower interest rate, the higher is the planned investment. We discussed it. If B is large, then a relatively small increase in the interest rate generates a large drop in investment spending. We discussed it. So next is for figure 10.4. The investment schedule of equation 1 shows for each level of the interest rate the amount that firms plan to spend on investment. The schedule is a negatively sloped, to reflect the assumption that a reduction in the interest rate increases the profitability of additions to the capital stock. The profit earned will be more, therefore leads to a larger rate of planned investment spending. The position of the investment schedule is determined by the slope, that is B, and two factors are there. One is B, and the next is level of autonomous investment spending. If investment is highly responsive to interest rate, a small decline in the interest rate will lead to a large increase in the investment. So the schedule is almost flat. That is, I'll draw it here. This video gets lengthy, but we need to get clarified with all the concepts, right? So it is about B. So this is the case where B is large, okay. When B is large, so if we are having I here, that is interest rate here, and a small decline in interest rate happened. Small decline only. Okay, the next is here. Just a small decline in interest rate happened, but the response to the interest rate is higher. That is, the coefficient B is higher. So for I1, for the first interest rate, say so for I1, if the curve was here, and for I2, here is B is large. Okay, B is large. So for I2, the investment will be here. Okay. Why? Because B is large. There are more things to be drawn here. This looks so terrible, I know, but yeah, this is the concept is about. I mean, my drawing looks so terrible, but I hope you got somewhat the concept. So when the interest rate decreases a little bit, in the case of B is large, when the slope is determined, the slope of IS curve is determined by the B and autonomous investment. So here, I, when decreased a little, the investment will increase more because B is large, so much. And when B is less, the converse will happen. Okay, that is, so first I was here, interest rate was here, then we had what to say, the investment somewhere here, then interest rate decreased this much, interest rate decreased this much, but as B is less, that is, the response to interest rate is less, the investment only increased a little bit. Okay, so that's it about B. Okay, just read this paragraph. It's about what we have discussed now. Okay, increase in the this is about I bar. We discussed how this B affects our curves. Okay, this paragraph is about how the B determines affects the curve. Next is changes in autonomous investment spending, that is I bar, shift the investment schedule. An increase in I bar means that each level of the interest rate, firms plan to invest at a higher rate. This would be shown by a rightward shift of the investment schedule. Okay, next is the interest rate and the aggregate demand, IS curve. We now modify the aggregate demand function of chapter 9. So we know this is the aggregate demand function. AD is equal to C plus I plus G plus NX. Consumption, investment, government spending, net exports. We know consumption can be written like this. In the second semester we studied this. Consumption can be written like this. Investment can be written like this. In this chapter we studied I, investment spending, is equal to I bar minus BI. Autonomous spending minus BI. B, responsiveness to the interest rate, I, interest rate. Okay, small I. Plus G and NX. G and NX are the net exports. Sorry, autonomous government spending, and NX is the autonomous net exports. Both are autonomous. They are not dependent on anything. Okay. So we can write that is all the autonomous elements as A. A bar plus the remaining ones in this form, right? So in this chapter, AD will be like this: A bar plus C 1 minus T in bracket multiplied by Y minus BI. So this is the aggregate demand in this chapter. Equation number 2. So from this equation, it is clear that an increase in the interest rate reduces aggregate demand for a given level of income, because a higher interest rate reduces investment spending. And A bar is unaffected by level of income and interest rate, because all is autonomous autonomous elements are only included in A bar. So interest rate and the income level has nothing to do with A bar. At the same time, A bar has a part of investment spending in the name of I bar. That is autonomous component of investment spending, and that is also independent of interest rate and income. Okay. Next is, at any given level of interest rate, we can still okay, this is of chapter 9, just read it by yourself. Okay, these things all just read it by yourself. Okay, this is an explanation for the coming diagram of interest rate. I'll minimize the screen so it will be more easier for you to get this. Okay, so when the interest rate I1, okay, is the interest rate, at that time we have our aggregate demand here. Okay, in the I1, for the I1 interest rate, we have the aggregate demand here. So first of all, we'll draw. These are the basic things, that's why I didn't explain it again. For a diagram, we'll be drawing AD equal to Y, the demand curve. So that's the basic thing. After that, these whole things have to be done. So here we know AD will be, as we discussed in the last formula, AD is equal to A bar plus C bracket 1 minus T multiplied by Y minus BI. Okay, so for the intercept, we'll be considering Y as 0. For the intercept, we'll be considering, Y as, oh, so not here. I'm really sorry for the, oh god. For the intercept, we will be considering Y as 0. So you will be getting A bar minus BI. Okay. Now comes the interest rates, different interest rates. In the first interest rate, that is I1, we will be having the aggregate demand here. Okay. Then interest rate is decreased a little bit. Okay. When the interest rate is decreased, that is I2, the investment is increased. The investment is increased this much. Okay, done. So this is what all this diagram is about. It is really easy, nothing much complicated, just get that. And where this wherever this diagram just cross this the AD curve, I mean not diagram, wherever our AD this curve crosses the AD curve, we'll get the equilibrium. Okay, and we'll be connecting that with I1 and I2. Okay, and that is the IS curve connecting the equilibrium points. Okay, in the combination of interest rate. Here we got to know that in this I1 interest rate we got equilibrium here. In I2 interest rate we got equilibrium here. Connecting those points in I1 here and I2 here, thus we will get the IS curve. Okay. Next is how to get the multiplier. So we know how to get y, that is y equal to AD. Aggregate demand is equal to A bar plus C 1 minus T whole bracket multiplied by y minus Bi. I have given the next steps here, just to assume that. Okay, then we'll be taking this, we are cancelling AD here. For the time being, we'll be considering it as this y. So y minus, we'll be taking this to the next part of the equal to sign. So y minus C 1 minus T multiplied by y is equal to A bar. This is A bar, okay. So A bar minus Bi. Then we can take y outside. So y multiplied by 1 minus C in bracket 1 minus T is equal to A bar minus Bi. Then we can take this whole part to the next side. Then it will be in the denominator. So y is equal to 1 by 1 minus C into 1 minus T. Okay. Multiplied by A bar minus Bi. Just have a check on this. So that's it, how you will get the multiplier. Next is slope of IS curve. I think it will be better if I take the slope of IS curve in the next next class. Video is getting more lengthier, that's why. So thank you. Let's meet in the next class. Happy learning.